This week, TGIF. Greg, I cannot resist asking you about a national mask mandate, because I know this is one of your favorite things to say.
Yes. I am tired of us furiously mask debating. It's driving me crazy. Let's step back for a minute, okay? Let's step back for a minute. I couldn't resist. Trump, this is an amazing comparison. Trump just ushered through an historic Middle East peace agreement. That might be Nobel Prize worthy. Who knows? I doubt it because it's Trump. But he brought Arabs and Jews together in a groundbreaking fashion. It's pretty amazing. And we're not leading off with it. Instead, we have Joe essentially regurgitating what Trump's own stance was. There's no daylight between them, right? It's like they took one of Trump's older ideas and they put it through in an incoherent language machine called Joe Biden, and then they pretend that it's news. But it's not news. What's news is this Middle East peace agreement. But it is kind of striking, something so big and so huge, and yet the candidate running against Trump is basically just plagiarizing one of his ideas and doing a terrible job. It's like he wrote the idea out in crayon.
So I want to. It's a great point, and I think I've talked a little bit about this before. Like, as the incumbent, you get to make the news. Like, you have the bully pulpit. Mm-hmm. So Katie, let me ask you about the Trump team's decision yesterday on the rollout of their historic agreement, and then stepping on it later on by responding to Biden and Harris, and that then became the headline.
Yeah, you know, Dana, having a campaign and moving forward while you're trying to also govern and deal with foreign policy is difficult. You know, the Biden campaign is rolling now. It's not like the president can't respond to what is going on when he's asked by reporters by giving these press conferences, and that's the difference. The president is out there every single day answering questions from reporters. But in terms of the policy here, you know, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have criticized President Trump for not getting on board with a mask mandate, but they keep also saying that we need to listen to the doctors and the scientists. Well, President Trump was listening to people like Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx early on, who were saying we should not be wearing masks. And now they've changed their mind on that, and he has listened to them and also said that it's patriotic to wear a mask, but isn't mandating it by the government. And I'm not really clear how you can defund the police, but then ask for a mandate that has to be enforced by who? I mean, is this going to be a criminal liability here? Are you breaking the law if you don't wear a mask? And who's going to enforce that? The social workers, as they have suggested. So in terms of asking questions of what they would do differently, would they have shut down the economy, or would they have allowed it to stay open so people would have been more infected, as the administration argues? I mean, they haven't given really any details about what they would have done differently as they throw stones and criticize the way that the president handled this with doctors like Fauci and Birx.
Okay, I know that the mask thing changed over time, but it's clear that Biden and Harris have done a ton of focus groups and figured out what do people want to hear. So they might not really even want to hear the details. They want to hear, apparently, that they think a mask mandate seems to be good. You saw that poll yesterday. 75% of all adults think that. And then they broke it down, and it was about 58% of Republicans. So I feel like they were being strategic in rolling that out first.
Perhaps they focus group tested it. I mean, I think people mostly want to follow the science. Now, they're trying to outflank the president with a big government approach. Think about this. Joe Biden is saying if I go sailing or gardening or play tennis or take a stroll in my neighborhood and I'm not wearing a mask, I can be fined and potentially thrown in prison. I thought we want to keep the jails empty, and I thought we want to recover from this economic hit. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Dana. This thing spreads inside, and everybody knows you keep 6 feet. This directly contradicts Anthony Fauci, the entire medical community. So I'm just going to forget about it. The guy flip-flopped on the travel ban from China. He flip-flopped on school reopening, and he's for extended lockdowns. Joe Biden doesn't know what he's talking about. That's number one. Number two, I looked at these battleground polls today because, you know, I'm kind of like a pollster in my free time. Trump's surging in the battleground polls. If you look at the Real Clear Politics average now, he's down 4 points in the battleground states. That's basically within the margin of error, and you know how they jigger these polls. I looked at this national poll. He's now down just 7. He was down 9 before. I looked at the national poll that came out. I looked at the internals, because this is what I do. All right? I looked at how they sampled it.
Yes.
NPR, Marist, they have Biden up 11. They sampled non-white voters at 37%. You know how much non-white voters turned out in 2016? 27%.
Right.
Where'd they get the extra 10%? Where'd they get that? Are they predicting that an extra 10% of non-white voters are going to show up in this election? They can't do that. So they're just making it up out of thin air. So if you combine these juice polls and the surge and the Sun Belt trend going down with cases and deaths and a massive Q3 number that's going to come in while these debates are happening, I think the president is actually in the driver's seat here.